In a city where the skyline touches the clouds and the promise of possibility draws people from every corner of the world, the election in New York became a defining moment of change. For years, many New Yorkers felt that their city, once the beacon of opportunity, was slipping away under the weight of skyrocketing rents, overcrowded subways, and a political class that seemed distant from the everyday struggles of working families. Into that tide stepped a candidate whose name would soon ripple across boroughs and bounce off the towering facades of Manhattan and Brooklyn, Zahran Mamdani. From his earliest campaign stops in Queens and the Bronx to his final rally under the lights of election night, he made his case not just in speeches, but in personal conversations, in the immigrant-run bodegas, in the busy intersections where taxis and buses share the street, in the neighborhoods where the rent-stabilized units are the only hope to keep a generation from being forced out. As the campaign unfolded, it became clear that Mamdani represented more than just another candidate. He symbolized a coalition of younger voters, immigrants, public transit riders, and renters who were tired of being told that the problems weren't solvable. His platform was bold: fare-free buses, a freeze on rents for rent-stabilized units, the creation of city-owned grocery stores to lower food costs, and a minimum wage uplift to $30 an hour by 2030. He framed his vision around affordability, dignity, and a city where everyone belongs, regardless of how long they've lived there or what their last name is. The campaign saw headwinds. The opposition brought up his relative youth and limited executive experience, questioned whether his ambitious promises were feasible, and attempted to frame him as inexperienced or too radical for a city as complex as New York. Alongside those legitimate policy critiques, there were also ugly undertows of identity-based attacks. His background, his faith, his ethnicity were used by some opponents to raise fear rather than discuss substance. These attacks provoked outrage among civil rights advocates, adding another layer of meaning to the election. It was not only about economic change, but a test of what kind of city New York would be in its next chapter. But Mamdani's campaign kept its focus on what he called the people who built this city and are being told to get out. He campaigned in Spanish, Bengali, Arabic, Urdu, and English, recognizing that each corner of the city has its own story and its own language of hope. He walked the streets of Queens, visited seniors in the Bronx, sat down with community organizers in Harlem, and met with young workers in Long Island City. His message was always the same: I will fight for you. I will be your mayor. Whether you voted for me or not, I'm working for you. On election day, the city turned out in force. The ballots poured in from neighborhoods that hadn't always felt heard. Young voters, previously disengaged, showed up. First-time voters checked Mamdani, and thousands of others did so too. When the results were tallied, the verdict was clear: Zahran Mamdani had won. He defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who had mounted a bid for comeback, and candidate Curtis Sliwa, securing a decisive victory and making history in the process. With his win, Mamdani becomes the first Muslim mayor of New York City, the youngest in more than a century, and the first of South Asian heritage to hold the office. The victory speech pulsed with emotion, unity, and resolve. Mamdani thanked his parents, his community, the volunteers who knocked doors and made phone calls, but most of all he thanked the voters. In his own words, "This is not my victory. It is ours. The dream of a city where working families can stay, where our public transit works, where our neighbors don't have to commute 2 hours because they were priced out, where our grocers are local and healthy, where our children go to great schools. That's the city I believe in, and that's the city we will build together." He acknowledged that the real work begins now, turning campaign promises into policy, building bridges with business and labor, making sure that the wave of enthusiasm doesn't wash away before it rebuilds the shore. What happens next? The challenges loom large. Raising the minimum wage to $30 is expensive. Free buses or deeply discounted transit require funding. Rent freezes clash with landlords and housing market dynamics. There will be pushback from powerful interest groups and from inside the system he now joins. But the win shows that New Yorkers were ready for change. They voted for a mayor who sees them, hears them, and wants them to thrive. The incoming mayor offered a blueprint: invest in affordability, in public services, in equity, in the neighborhoods. The incoming administration called for a new direction, one that asks not what's best for the establishment, but what's best for the people who call this city home. As New York City prepares for inauguration and for the transition to this new leadership, the question shifts from who won to how will the change be delivered? The hope that filled ballots must now be transformed into the sidewalks being repaired, the buses running smoothly, the rent stabilized, the groceries accessible. And the mayor will need the city behind him: citizens, workers, organizers, business owners, landlords, public officials. The old guard greets the new leadership with caution. Some see a wave of progress, others see disruption and risk. But the message from the electoral victory is unequivocal: the people chose hope, they chose action, they chose a future where the city works for them. In that sense, this election is more than a local story, it is a signal. A city of immigrants, of multitudes, of languages and dreams, of skyscrapers and subways, New York has turned a page. It is telling the rest of the country, if you listen to people, if you address cost of living and dignity, you can overcome entrenched power. And for the thousands of volunteers who knocked doors, for the young voters who stood in line past midnight, for the working parents who whispered, "Our city is slipping," and then marched out and voted, this win is theirs. The mayor-elect doesn't promise immediate perfection, he promises persistent effort. He says, "We start today, the work begins now, every neighborhood will matter, every voice will be heard." So as we watch the next few months unfold, as policies are drafted, committees formed, budgets debated, let us remember how we got here, not because of one person alone, but because a coalition believed that New York could be better, affordable, fair, inclusive. This is the moment when the city said, "Yes, we will fight for fairness. Yes, we believe in public transit, in community grocery stores, in housing that doesn't force families out. Yes, we believe the city belongs to all of us." And in that spirit, the campaign becomes a mandate and the victory becomes a responsibility. Thank you for following the story of this election, this new chapter for New York. And if you liked this video, please subscribe to our channel for more updates, analysis, and stories about politics and people making change.